Hey everyone, Rob from Southgate Media Group here. Before we get started with this podcast, we have a quick message. If this is your first time checking out the show, we love that you found us and we really hope you enjoy it. What we have to say is for the subscribers. If you enjoy our shows, would you please donate to help keep these going? We don't want to have to put traditional ads on these shows, but this does cost money. So we really do rely heavily on donations. To make a donation to the show, please go to our website, www.southgatemediagroup.com. Go to the page for the show, and in the upper right-hand corner is a donate button. It takes you right to PayPal, and you can donate whatever amount you want. Thanks a lot for listening, everybody. And now on with the show.
Welcome everyone to the Bachelor Universe podcast. Wow, episode 5 is in the books, and do we have a lot to talk about tonight. This episode was all about Kelsey. Yes, it was some 50 Shades of Grey in this episode and a lot of Gone Girl starring Kelsey. On with the episode recap. The show starts out with a trip, and no, we're not going anywhere exotic yet, and we're pretty much halfway through the season, and there hasn't been anything out of the country or anything exotic or out of the ordinary. It was a sweet trip to New Mexico. Yeah, I'll let you kind of digest that one. A trip to New Mexico? Really? Apparently, Megan didn't mind. An overjoyed Megan. We see her just completely putting over New Mexico, and she should absolutely be the ambassador of New Mexico from now on, going forward. Megan basically thinks that New Mexico is in Mexico, but it's kind of in the US. So basically we are the new version of Mexico. It's just located in the US. Yeah, I don't know what grade Megan passed, but it's worrisome to think that she thinks New Mexico, of course, would be a trip out of the country. Not so much. Technically, the looks of it would make you think it should shouldn't be a part of America, but it is. Anyways, on to the trip. They go to New Mexico. The first one-on-one of the night goes to Carly. Carly gets a one-on-one, so she's been really moving up the last few episodes. A lot more of Carly, the cruise ship singer, who still probably doesn't have a job on Chris's farm. There's no chance. So Carly gets a one-on-one with Chris. And where did they go? Well, there could be a lot of scenic possible places in New Mexico. Deserts, and more deserts. But no, they go to a love guru. Yes, a love guru. Boy, was that awkward and weird. So the love guru was basically a sex guru, because one of the first things they had them doing was various sexual positions. Yeah. It didn't come out right. Epic fail. I felt awkward. I'm sure all of you felt awkward for them, watching what they had to endure, trying to position themselves in odd positions. And obviously Chris and Carly themselves, they weren't feeling it. So then this love guru, quotation marks around that, it was really a sex guru, had them come close to each other and basically breathing on each other face to face, inches apart, but they couldn't kiss. Now that was an interesting twist there, because them not being able to kiss meant that they would just have to absorb the intimacy surrounding them. And that actually got them going to a sense where they did get a bit intimate. And I mean, at this point, the clothes were off halfway in a sense, because as the teasers of the episode from last week would please suggest that they hooked up and that they had sex, which they absolutely did not, because they admitted to each other how awkward this situation was, but it actually led to them opening up to each other about their innermost insecurities. Carly mentioned never being appreciated and how she was longing to feel appreciated and wanted. It's surprising. She had mentioned that having an ex who just disregarded her and never made her feel pretty or nice. Chris obviously took that to heart, as he does with everything, and he mentioned to her just how he appreciates her. And Chris mentioned his insecurity being that he's basically afraid to see if the woman he chooses is going to want to move to a farm with him. And it's a legitimate insecurity in a sense, but it's a concern. And Chris obviously has that concern. So it was nice to see them have a moment, a real moment with each other. So that was pretty cool. Next up, oh yeah, last week we had Jade Arella, which of course we know was Jade getting the full treatment of Cinderella, sponsored by Cinderella, last week's episode, not this week's. But this week's, the remaining women in the house, minus Britt, who gets the next one-on-one. Well, the remaining women of the house got to go see Cisco. That thong, 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 got and fabulous, something, something. No, not that Cisco. No. Cisco, the whitewater rafting guru, I guess. Yeah, some old dude. And they basically went to a pond, well, technically a river, for whitewater rafting, which technically you can take out the white from that. It was mud water rafting. They get on the boat, a few boats. Jade apparently has balance and coordination issues and falls off the boat. And next thing you see, they're trying to fetch her out. Someone gets her back on the boat. Certainly wasn't one of the women who might have pushed her off. Wink, wink. But then Jade tells Chris that she has a condition that her limbs go numb. I don't know if the water causes this, cold water or cold in general. Cold would kind of make sense. Her feet and hands were going numb, so Chris, of course, tends to Jade, and that makes every woman in the house jealous and angry. We still see bitter Kelsey for week 2. Yes. Last week she was kind of bitter when they went to that lake in LA. And this week Kelsey was not having it again. Apparently Kelsey does not like group dates and she doesn't like nature. Unless it's Michigan, according to her. End of this quick group date, which really nothing happened out of. They go back to a hotel where the women are waiting Chris, but Chris is stopped by someone. Enter Jordan. Yes, the Jordan last time we saw that was drinking and falling over drunk and getting eliminated. Jordan is back. Well, at least she came back. She gets a hold of Chris in the hotel, claims to have driven from Colorado to see him. I mean, she must have the greatest sixth sense in the world if she randomly found Chris in New Mexico. That didn't happen randomly. Obviously, the producers were on part with that, and someone had to tell her where to find him. But she did. Asked him to give her a second chance because she drank and regrets what she did and that she's not that type of person. So Chris quickly debates with himself and ponders and gives her a chance. Finally, the women who have been awaiting him the entire time, and Chris walks in with Jordan, to the dismay and shock of every woman on the group date. Everyone was just trying to pick Jordan apart at this point. You talk about bullying and tough love. Well, we kind of saw that. Every girl pretty much had their little one-on-one with Chris, telling him how he should send Jordan back home, how she doesn't deserve to be there. The only girl that was making I wouldn't say a case for Jordan, but didn't feel threatened and felt a bit sorry for her was Whitney. Disney Princess Whitney, who's starting to become one of the better girls in the house. Not only for Chris, just in general, because a lot of bad apples are forming. So my opinion on Whitney's changing quickly. But Whitney wasn't happy, obviously, with Jordan there, but felt like she deserved at least a chance and for Chris to decide what he wants to do. So that ended up being short-lived, as it was evident that Chris couldn't keep her any longer and that the women were not going to let it go on. So Chris tells Jordan politely that she should probably leave. And Jordan tells him that she came there to make peace, and that if he were to send her back the second time, then she could sleep better at night, allegedly. I'm making claims to that. And Chris sends her home. Now, Britt needs to get ready for the date, but Britt needs to shower also. Yes, we find out from Carly that Britt doesn't shower. Now, from the looks of it, she looks pretty clean and well kept and maintained, but Carly basically goes with the thought and idea and insider knowledge that she might have that Britt doesn't shower, or showers like once a week or something like that. Stirring up a pot, possibly for Carly. Yeah, she might be. She might be throwing some gas into the fire, but we don't know that. Obviously, Chris can't smell Brittany. Brittany's long gone. Chris can't smell Britt because he's still keeping her around, and I don't know how much truth there is to that. Maybe she doesn't shower, but she still looks good. That's all that matters. Crit. Yes, Crit. That's a good name. Brittany, Britt, and Chris, Crit. No, I won't call him that yet. So Chris surprises Britt middle of the night, pretty much around like 4 a.m. He walks into her hotel room with a few other women in the room, one of them being Carly. Interesting point here to note is that few of these women were sleeping together, and boy, couldn't they just get more rooms or more separate beds? They have to sleep together, or maybe they just wanted to. I don't know, but it looked interesting to say the least. And Britt, of course, she slept with makeup on. Yes, she admitted to sleeping with makeup, putting on makeup before bed. Women really do that sort of thing. But sleeping with makeup sounds like a bad idea. Unless you're Britt. Britt gets awakened by Chris, and the first thing they do is kiss with a bunch of girls in the room. And then Chris whisks her away out of the room. And Britt was pretty much ready to go. Didn't have to get ready or anything. Off they go, and what is the date? The date is a hot air balloon ride. Britt mentions that she is really not into heights and that she's scared of heights, but suddenly she just forgets about that and seems pleased that they're going to go on a hot air balloon ride, which they do. After the hot air balloon ride, they go back to Chris's hotel, and they spend some alone time on the bed, a lot of making out, and Chris closes the doors on the cameras. Nothing happened, I'm sure. Yeah, right. Something definitely probably happened behind those closed doors, and Britt is starting to turn into who I expected her to be and who we all probably thought she is. An LA waitress / actress. Probably isn't as sweet as everyone thinks she is. I think there's some maybe manipulation on her part or strategizing. She kind of reminds me slightly at this point of a Nick Vale. Not that that's a good thing or anything. But Britt is certainly gonna start getting some backlash from the women in the house. Of course, Britt also calls Chris her boyfriend. She tells him that he feels like, he's her boyfriend, which she hasn't said before, right? Yeah, I think she said that in the first episode. So there you go, Britt, doing nothing new. Britt arrives back from her date and brags to everyone how much fun her and Chris had, and that riles up the women in the house. Of course, the first one that would get most annoyed would be Ashley I, who does her weekly panicking and complaining and throwing a tantrum of jealousy. Yeah, it's Ashley I for you. That's what she's good for every week. Now, what happens next is kind of something that changes everything. Kelsey, feeling the pressure of Britt's successful date, and the looming rose ceremony, decides to take matters into her own hands. Yes, Kelsey decides to go up to Chris's room and tell him a story, an amazing story. She goes up to Chris's room. This is her moment and time where she finally is going to admit to him that she is widowed and that her husband had died. Now, mind you, Chris did hear that story already from Julia not so long ago. This is Kelsey's opportunity. So Kelsey starts out telling him the story, and then suddenly, when Chris is feeling really bad for her, she twists it and turns it and becomes a villain. She turns heel. In wrestling terms, that would be the perfect description, meaning she turns into a villain in a moment's notice. So instead of crying, she starts telling him how amazing her story is and how great her story is. And then she's smiling right as she's telling him about the death of her. Wow. Yeah, it's craziness. And suddenly Kelsey becomes a not so good girl. Chris is apparently shooken up. You can see that. And Kelsey decides to start kissing him, because that's what you do when you tell a story of your fiance that's now dead and only happened a year and a half ago, which is kind of quick to move on. Kelsey doesn't care. So they're kissing and making out, and then Kelsey does her one-on-one with her on-camera interview, and she tells everyone what an amazing story she has and how she loves her story, and that every time she says it, it's so amazing and impactful, concluding with the ever-popular Monday nights at 8, the love story unveil. Yeah. So now we know who is a strategizer, who I picked as the winner of the show. The girl that was most likely to be a best fit as a wife for Chris. Somehow I think I'm going to be revising my prediction, because that might not happen. She kind of reminds me of Courtney from Ben's season, Courtney Robertson. But no, I think Kelsey's just taking it to another level. With that said, Kelsey goes back down to the party. Not much of a party, cocktail party, impending, which Chris Harrison comes out and informs everyone there will be no cocktail party tonight, because Chris is kind of distraught, and his conversation with Kelsey has made him think about things. Kelsey is threatened once again after beaming with confidence and getting petted by Britt, which is a really weird scene that they reenacted or acted out. It was just odd how they were all into each other. Yeah, consoling one another. Kelsey gets threatened again, and she says that she doesn't want to be part of any rose ceremony tonight. She can't handle it. She walks out of the room. Next thing you hear is her sobbing and crying and laying on the floor, and a bunch of paramedics surrounding her. Kelsey basically tells them that she's suffering from a panic attack. Now, Personally, I've grew up with panic attacks. I still occasionally have them, and it's no joking matter. Panic attacks are pretty serious. They're scary because they really make you feel like something wrong is happening with your body or with yourself. It's a way of your mind tricking you into believing that you're really having symptoms when in reality you kind of aren't, but it feels very real, and that's the scary part. So panic attacks are no joke. It's a serious condition, really, that people go through, and I felt it and have gone through it myself multiple times. It's kind of when stress just basically takes over you, and it takes over your body and your mind, and losing all that control is pretty scary. Nothing to joke about, but Kelsey says she's having an anxiety panic attack. The paramedics rush to her and tend to her, and that's where we leave off the episode with a to be continued. Yes, no rose ceremony, and that's how it ends. So we usually get that once every season, a to be continued. So this was a turning point episode, the most dramatic and most wild and crazy, and an episode with a major twist, unexpected, with Kelsey. This was an important episode. One I think we'll look back later on at the end of the season saying that it kind of changed the landscape and the direction of the show. So it was a very interesting episode. With that being said, Kelsey, don't use your dead husband as a stepping stone to advance on a show. That's poor taste to the extreme. Your story is not amazing, it's sad. Don't use it to your advantage in that way, in a manipulative way. It's just unfair to that man that's now gone. If she was pretending to be suffering from a panic attack, which I have no knowledge of her pretending, or it could have been very much real, I don't know as to was she really suffering it. Maybe we'll find out next episode, but hopefully she wasn't, because also you don't want to make a mockery of panic attacks and anxiety attacks, because it's a serious issue that a lot of people deal with. But Kelsey is Gone Girl. That's what she's turned into. So Rosamund Pike, sorry, you will not be reprising that role in a sequel because Kelsey's got that part. Gone Girl 2, starring Kelsey and Ben Affleck or Chris or whomever they want to throw in there. Kelsey's got that gig. You had some 50 Shades also stuff going on that was teased, basically. There wasn't much of 50 Shades, any craziness, maybe behind the closed doors when Chris closed the doors, but we don't know that. But certainly it wasn't with Carly. Now, we cast Kelsey as Gone Girl, so Chris is going to need a wife. Now, of the remaining women, who seem like the potential wives at this point? Well, Britt was on real thin ice last week, and she really regained her momentum in this episode. So she's back in the running. Jade made quite an impression last week. I think she's now up to the forefront in the running. And I think she's a solid girl. Although there's truth to her being in Playboy in the past. So those of you interested in Jade without clothing, you might want to look that up somehow. Yeah, puts a smile on some faces. Not this one, of course. Wink, wink. Then I think Whitney comes to mind, actually, as a potential hometown date. I think she's kind of been now getting the roses fairly early, and she's been spending some time with Chris. I think she's one to be considered. Possibly Carly, but we obviously know Caitlin's still one of Chris's favorites. I think she's pretty much a lock to make to hometown. Not sure if she's a favorite, but I think her looks are keeping her around, and her personality that Chris seems to dig for whatever reason. Ashley I, on the other hand, well, she did accuse Britt not wanting kids or marriage on the show. She did tell the other ladies that she had talked to Britt and that Britt said that she doesn't care about kids or marriage. And now there's a worry that she's playing Chris. Could that be true? Another allegation, just like the Carly one about the showering. But according to Ashley Britt is basically playing the field with Chris, and she, no pun intended, but she's not possibly being honest with him. That could be problematic. So is she playing him? We will find out in the next episodes coming up. And the preview for next week was very quick. There wasn't much you could give away, obviously, because they didn't do the eliminations this week. So the preview for next week was more Ashley crying in tantrums, which is a given, pretty much a guarantee with every episode. There's going to be a follow-up on Kelsey, see what happened with that situation. And we will see Chris and Britt running, and someone telling him not to run. And then you see a few really disappointed women. Seems like they're disappointed at Chris. Maybe news came out that he had done something with Britt in the hotel room. But apparently there's going to be some disappointed women. Ashley obviously, one of them. So that's going to be an interesting take for next week to see where they can build off of this episode. This has been the MVP episode of the season so far. The most important and the most drama-filled and exciting episode so far. It was a good one. Can next week live up to it? I think it could. I think from now on we're going to start, people are getting eliminated more and more, and I think things are starting to change now in the sense that the strong contenders are remaining. Who do I think will get eliminated in the next beginning of the next episode? Obviously they're going to have an elimination. I think Samantha, I think she's still on the show. I have no idea who she is, but I think she's on the show. And I think she's going home fairly quickly. I think Megan might be leaving. And if I had to pick another two, maybe Ashley That might be a sleeper who might get sent home. Ashley could possibly be sent home. We'll see what happens. But there are still some, and I think obviously Mackenzie will be the one that's going home too. So Mackenzie, Samantha, who I don't know if she's on the show or isn't, and Megan seem like sort of locks to be leaving at this point. Possibly an Ashley with them. We shall see next week on The Bachelor. Thanks for joining me on this episode 5, a very enjoyable and entertaining, and boy, we have our first major villain of the season, and who would have thought it would have been Kelsey of all people. Still shocked. Didn't see that coming. Apparently got to revise my pick. Ashley is still crazy, and she's more of a complainer, and things are happening. So until next week, I will see you guys, and make sure to check out my blog at chicagonow.com. You can just Google Bachelor Universe and get it that way. Thanks for listening to this episode of the Bachelor Universe podcast. Until next week, guys. See ya.